The ethics, the story for those of you who haven't heard it, is that there's all of these influencers who are promoting unregulated crypto gambling that is offshore. And there's a number of issues with it, which he lays out very well. One that's the biggest for me is that they are accepting money to promote it and receiving money to gamble. Like, so they're actually not risking anything.
Sure.
So the ups and the downs are a joke because they're actually just making money the whole time. The second one is that little kids can do it because it's totally unregulated. Yeah. And the third, which I didn't know, is that casinos have a process by which you can self-exclude. So you can say, hey, I am a gambling addict. I have a problem. Please do not let me gamble at your casino. And they will actually like take your information and not let you. These casinos do not have that option. The thing that I didn't consider, and I mentioned this and I think I was right, is that he talks to the guy who he kind of exposed as doing it. And he seems to feel bad about getting caught. And he says, what do I have to do to make this right with you? Which is, there's just the moral understanding. And he says, I've never actually thought about this before. Like, no one in my circle ever said that this wasn't a good thing to do. And I genuinely believe that.
It didn't occur to him that he was doing something wrong.
Correct.
Until the CoffeeZilla video.
Yes. And even his sense of wrong is like, it was, what do I have to do to make this right with you, CoffeeZilla? And not, what do I have to do to undo the harm that I've caused my fans and my audience? Which is like, send them the money that you made. You know what I mean? Like, which nobody suggested, but it's... take all
the money you made from this thing and distribute it to the people who lost money because of they were following your recommendation.
Yeah, because you...
and that still won't make them whole, by the way, because they probably lost way more money than you got paid. But at least you're not profiting off their losses, and they're a little bit mitigated from the harm that... following you caused them.
There's a lot of things, and what I found most interesting, typical, and not exceptional was that there's people's understanding, and sometimes my own, of morality is just like, what'll get me accepted by the group? Like, what'll make the punishment go away for this? And I genuinely believe people want to make the punishment go away and can be made to feel bad and guilty about things. But there is such a almost non-existent instinct of like, have I caused harm? How do I undo that harm? Which is not, you can solicit other people's advice on it, but it's not about clearing you in the mind of some third-party judge, arbiter who's going to uncancel you. It's about just trying to rectify what you've done. And I just found it fascinating because I totally believed him, A, that nobody said anything, B, that he'd never thought about it before, and C, that he wasn't being guided by some sort of internal moral compass that was anything larger than what is happening around me, what is acceptable.
It wasn't an epiphany of like, oh, I should try to undo this harm.
Yes. Yeah, man, there's just, this is actually something that I want to talk about. If nothing comes up for you here, you did the Sociopath video lately, which I'm sure there's some links between that. I actually didn't watch your video, so you could tell me what makes a sociopath.
Sure.
But I'm sure one of the things is like disregard for harming others.
Well, this is the thing. I actually believe this. Logan Paul said this when they were doing the video about Jake, and if Jake is a sociopath. I think it's a spectrum. I think that the actual diagnosable sociopaths and psychopaths are very far down the spectrum. I don't think it's close, if that makes sense, between a normal person who has some tendencies like this versus a diagnosed antisocial personality disorder person. I think they're leagues ahead in a way that is meaningful. But I think everybody has areas where they lack empathy. And that's the defining symptom of being a sociopath, is that you can't empathize with other people's pain and sadness. And we all have some degree of that. We buy iPhones that children in mines get, or we buy clothes from Nike.
If you live in a city, you walk past homeless people.
Yeah. And so I think if you can feel empathy, strong empathy for anybody, basically that eliminates you from being diagnosably ASPD. But we all have that lack of empathy for somebody. And it just depends who you are in terms of how that shakes out. But I think society tells you which people you can ignore. I think it's very common if you're raised in a place that says you don't need to have empathy for this certain class of people. Very few people extend that group empathy. So
yeah, and it seems that one of that biggest groups is like people that you have a difficult time seeing or imagining.
Being far away from you.
Yeah,
but people can walk past Skid Row every day and not mind, and those people are 10 yards away.
Yeah. So I didn't watch the video, and I think the spectrum thing is definitely true. I'm sure that you could take and people have done this. They like apply the ASPD traits to the American society at large, and are like, disregard feelings of other people.
Here's what I'm saying. This person, you're saying in this instance had a sociopathic moment with their audience where they didn't have empathy for the pain they were causing. But I'm saying if they then find out that a friend's dad died and get teared up at the thought of the pain that person's going through, they're automatically not actually a sociopath. I think people are very quick to be like, oh, how could you possibly do that to this one person? You must be a sociopath. But if you can have strong empathy for anyone, then you're not technically.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is even like we're starting from the presupposition that there are sociopaths and that is a useful definition. And I think in some contexts it is when you're trying to convince someone of the severity of their inability to fit in with society. I guess what I come back to is like all of these diagnoses and all of morality is just totally relative to your surrounding, such that in 200 years, we're all going to be diagnosable sociopaths or whatever they call it. ASPDs, it'll have evolved by then. And I guess in watching this, I was just very struck.
Sorry, I actually don't know that I believe that. Do you want to dive into that? That we will all be diagnosed as sociopaths? Yeah, I'll bet against that.
Okay, so take the things that a lack of empathy. What are some of the other traits? So you did the video.
Well, there's symptoms and signs. So like the biggest symptom is that you can't empathize with other people, and the signs are that you don't feel bad about manipulating them. You're more likely to look at people and weigh what you can get from them instead of having a relationship that's more based on, that's based on anything besides basically what they can get you in the moment. And you don't really have an internal guilt. You don't have an internal sense of hurting this person has made me feel bad. So everything that you do on a logical basis, because not every sociopath is a bad person, but they have a logical front brain understanding of right and wrong that guides them without any feeling of like, ooh, I'm hurting that you're hurting.
Well, then I guess so you're saying, and that if you are diagnosable, there's no one on the planet for whom you would be able to conceivably feel those empathetic feelings?
For your closest people, you can get a shallow version of what most people get. And
so this is what I'm saying. It's if it is all a spectrum, there's no actual off switch and there's no fully on. Like fully on would be like all of capitalism puts first and foremost the transactional nature of relationships, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying we don't consider slave owners sociopaths. So whatever your thing today is that you think is sociopathic, ignoring the homeless, in 2300, the year 2300, they're not going to look back at us and say the way they treated the homeless, they were all sociopaths who lacked empathy.
Got it.
And I believe that because we don't look back at anything and think that.
Yes. So it sounds like what we basically do is we take the bottom 10% of empathy in society or concern for other people, and we categorize that as diagnosable.
Yeah, and maybe I'm not explaining this well, but it's a long tail. So the difference in the amount of empathy felt by those people is drastic compared to the other 95%.
Yes, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I agree.
Everything's a spectrum, quote unquote, but you can imagine a spectrum that's just a flat box, basically, where it's like 10% of the population is 10% higher than the next 10%, which is 10% higher than the next 10. And this is like a very, very long tail, such that it's 1 in 30 people, but they're not feeling 10% less empathy than the people closest to them on the spectrum.
Got it. I understand. I think I suppose the things that I just react to in the comments is there's a tendency to go, that's a sociopath, and therefore I am not. You know what I mean? Which is not at all what you were suggesting. I sense that. I see it. There's this, we like to know the labels of bad things so that we can find other people that are those things, pretend that the world is a binary on-off switch of which we do not have that bad thing. And I have heard when people use the term psychopath or sociopath, that seems to be the connotation that sometimes comes behind it. Not necessarily that that's what you were doing at all in your breakdown.
I think most people who are sociopaths don't even know it. I think they just live their lives not thinking that they have anything abnormal in their brain, and they don't commit crimes. They become business people that break rules that don't result in them going to jail, but result in fines or whatever it might be. And sometimes become very high-powered lawyers or business people. Like they're successful and cutthroat, but they're not necessarily thought of as non-neurotypical.
Yeah, and I think bringing it back to this casino gambling, I don't think anybody's going to accuse these people of being sociopaths, because that's like standard 2021 money-driven. Don't think about the consequences. And I think you could make an argument that behavior belongs farther on the one side of the spectrum, because it is so. I don't think it would take a lot of consideration to imagine the harm that you're causing other people.
Well, I'll go the other route though. This is the Jordan Peterson argument. If you were in Nazi Germany, you'd probably be a Nazi. Sure. If everyone in their friend group is saying this isn't immoral, I actually think no. I think the normal human thing is to not have a strong internal compass of right and wrong. And so this guy doing this, to me, just indicate anything except for that he might, well, I don't even want to say, I don't want to bad about the guy. A lot of people in Nazi Germany became Nazis. Let's just put it that way. And it took a very rare person to hide Jews in the attic and risk your own life because you thought what's happening was wrong. That was insanely rare. Most people either just put their heads down and tried not to do anything, or enlisted and fought for Nazi Germany. So I think that's normal human psychology is to allow yourself to do that. There are moral sociopaths. They have to fight that instinct, and they learn not to do that. So they go, I don't feel guilty stealing from Charlie, but I know that he wouldn't like it. And I know that I do like Charlie. And I also know that I wouldn't like if he stole from me. So I won't steal from Charlie. So there are sociopaths who go to therapy and they learn that their brain is not operating the way most people's do. And then they learn tricks to be moral and operate in society. It's actually some of the people we featured in the video, but it's a very like decision tree style look at morality.
Got it.
With the people close to you even.
Hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.